Words of joy and hope. 24th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Year
Dal
B.
Vangelo secondo
Gospel according to
Marco.
St. Mark chapter 8, verses 27 to 35. Commentary by Father Fernando Armelini. A good Sunday to all. In last week's Gospel passage, we heard the story of the healing by Jesus of a deaf and dumb man in the Decapolis in pagan territory. And we noticed that the disciples did not accompany Jesus. He had gone alone to the Decapolis, and before that, he had gone to Tyre and Sidon alone, without the apostles. So he had spent some time away from his disciples. We will also remember that the separation took place in a rather tense atmosphere. Jesus had a discussion first with the scribes and Pharisees, and then also with the disciples, and had harsh words against them. In the end, he had said, "But you are really like that, fools, not to understand certain things." And then he had gone to Tyre and Sidon. Today we find him again with the disciples. We hear where he leads them and what he speaks to them on the way.
Jesus and his disciples went on to the village around Caesarea Philippi.
He led them to the northeasternmost part of the land of Israel. From Capernaum, it is 2 days' journey, but it is worth it because it leads one to the most delightful place in the land of Israel. And therefore, at the foot of Mount Hermon, ever snowy, its fresh and abundant waters of the river Jordan abound. The surrounding plain is watered by countless streams that make the soil fertile. It is a true paradise on earth, so enchanting that when Alexander the Great passed through it in the year 331, he exclaimed, "How great! It is indeed the abode of the god Pan and the nymphs." That is why this place is called Panias, after the god Pan, whence the present name Banias. Also, in the Bible, this region is famous for its lush pastures and the fertility of its flock and herds. We ask, why did Jesus take his disciples to Caesarea Philippi? He is going to have a conversation with them, but he could have done it in Capernaum. No, he wanted to ask certain questions in Caesarea Philippi. Therefore, it is important to understand which city was the capital of Philip's kingdom. This city was called Caesarea Philippi because it was founded by Philip, one of the three favorite sons of Herod the Great. He had built it as his capital. Of course, he had named it Caesarea after the emperor of Rome. What did the apostles see around them? Jesus took them there precisely so that they could contemplate this place. They saw a fascinating sight. They were enchanted, not only by the scenery, but also by the comfortable life that the inhabitants led. They could not but envy the pleasures that the tetrarch Philip could afford in his palaces. One of these palaces was just above the spring, where you see that building in the middle of the trees. It is a charming position from which you can contemplate the whole valley. Another detail is a bit marginal, a bit of gossip. The apostles also know who lives in this palace, with whom Philip lives. His wife is Salome, the famous dancer who had asked for the head of the Baptist. She was certainly the star whom animated the parties and dances in the triclinium of Philip's palace. It is in the framework of the attractive life that leads people to this place why Jesus asks the first question to the disciples. Let us listen to it. On the way, he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, one of the prophets." The first question Jesus asks can be paraphrased this way: I embody a certain type of man. What opinion do people have of this man I propose with my person and with my life? Do I have a certain value, or am I completely insignificant and nobody is interested in me? Everyone would like to be like Philip. He is the ideal man, admired and envied by all, and even the apostles, in their heart of hearts, would like to incarnate Philip's life. But of his involvement we shall speak later. The answer given by the disciples: for the people, the human being that you incarnate counts and counts a lot. They say that you are like John the Baptist, like Elijah, as one of the prophets. Interestingly, no one has seen in Jesus something that makes him look like the great personalities of his time. People envied Philip's good life, but in Jesus they see similarities with people whom they admired for their lives, not for the buildings they built. They do not see in Jesus any similarity with the high priest before whom all bow down. No similarity with these characters. Jesus resembles the Baptist because people have realized that he is like the Baptist, one with a straight back, not bent like the reeds, blown about by the wind. He says what he thinks and lives what he preaches. Then they compare him to Elijah, the one who has professed faith in the one God and has rejected any compromise with idols. Here we are in the land where idols are worshipped. You can see the beautiful white marble temples dedicated in the 19th century BC by Herod the Great to Augustus and the goddess Rome. And then the buildings of Pan and the nymphs. Those who worship idols receive from them palaces, honors, pleasures, blessings. If you worship idols, you may be full of good things, but at what price do you become their slave? You are no longer free. Idols occupy all your thoughts. They deceive all your choices. If you worship the money god, he gives you everything, but you have to obey him. You have to be ready to exploit, lie, even kill if necessary. This is the slavery of the idol. Jesus is one who rejected the idols because he appreciates the beautiful things of this world, which are God's creatures and gifts. But woe to you if you become a slave to them. This is the likeness of Jesus to Elijah. The human being proposed by Philip is the one who bestows wealth, positions of prestige, of power. Those who bow down to him make them partakers of his joys and luxurious life of the court. People appreciate the human being incarnated by Jesus. They admire him for his righteousness, his courage. But the question is, what do I gain if I become like him? Is it worthwhile to be like him? Or is it better to be like the idol worshippers? Or like those who bow down to Philip? What can Jesus offer to those who follow him? This is a question that we must ask ourselves also today with clarity, because we must answer with sincerity. We could be feeding fantasies that would end in bitter disappointment. Let us review what in the past people expected from Jesus and the saints. What were they asking when going to the church? It is not surprising that those who expected from Jesus and the saints healing of diseases, welfare, protection against misfortune, later they all go and look for these fortunes elsewhere in science and technology. The one who embodies the human proposed by Jesus, what advantages do they have? To clarify this, Jesus asks the disciples a second question. Let us listen to it carefully, for it is addressed to us.
But what about you? He asked. Who do you say I am? Peter answered, You are the Messiah. Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him.
Peter's answer to Jesus' second question is correct. You are the Christ, the Son of God of life. That is, you are the awaited Messiah. But this is not what Jesus wants to know. First of all, what Messiah does Peter have in mind? He is not God's Messiah. He is the Messiah according to human criteria of tradition, the son of David who would have ruled the world. But the problem is that Peter has not understood what Jesus wants to know. The question is, who am I to you? Means, how much do I count in your life? How much are you involved in my proposal as a man? It is the question that a young man asks his girlfriend. Who am I to you? It doesn't mean who I am, but for you. That is, how much I count in your life, in your choices, in your thoughts. How much does my person count? This is the question that Jesus asked. He wants to know what extent his disciples are involved in his proposal as a man. In other words, he says to the disciples, do you want to be men like Herod, Philip, or like me? You have understood that we are different. What kind of men have you fallen in love with? What kind of person do you want to be? To what extent are you committed to me? It is the betrothal proposal. Do you want to join your lives to mine? It's a question we must let ourselves ask today. You, what are you willing to bet your life on for Jesus of Nazareth? Maybe the union with him concerns a particular time of your life, which may be the participation in the Sunday liturgy, a good thing, a little bit of prayer. Jesus is not content with that. He wants to know if you want to join your whole life to live as he lived. This is the answer Jesus wants to know from the disciples. Perhaps we too have given our adherence to Christ as Peter did, with much enthusiasm, but without understanding. So let us clarify well our ideas of what Jesus is telling us now. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this. Jesus spoke plainly about this. What a strange word to begin with, because we are in the middle of his public life. So it has been a year and a half already, and Jesus has already taught so much. Now he has to start teaching again, because the disciples have not understood where he wants to take them, or rather, they have not wanted to understand. Jesus does not want any misunderstandings. He does not behave like certain people who, to win the person they love, disguise themselves by hiding a little of their true identity. Jesus does not. He wants those who adhere to him to have a clear idea of where he is going and where he wants to take those who follow him. The Son of Man is he. Son of Man in Hebrew, Ben Adam, simply means the prototype of man, the man that Jesus wants to incarnate, the man that Jesus presents with his person. He must suffer much. The religious authorities will reject him, the scribes, the high priests, and he will be killed. It is the proposal of the goal, and he will go to that goal, and now he proposes it to his disciples. Therefore, he will be a loser, a failure. He who wants to be great in the world must compete, because life is a competition, a frantic race to reach higher and higher. It was so in Jesus' time, and it is even more so today. The wise Kohelet called this pathetic game as Hebel, vanity, smoke, and even those who win run after the wind. Hebel, he says. Jesus proposes a different man who does not enter into a competition, who gives his life for love. In the eyes of the world, the man he proposes is a loser, and Jesus will be a loser. The political and religious authorities will condemn him and kill him. But he immediately adds that after 3 days, he will be resurrected. He says, "Pay attention well, because the story of the man that I propose does not end in the darkness of a tomb." The judgment of God turns the criteria and evaluates the success of life in an opposite way to people's judgments. Peter is shocked. He has received a terrible blow, and it is a sign that he has understood. Before, he did not understand or did not want to understand. Now, Jesus is too clear, and Peter cannot accept this perspective of the gift of life. This is not why he has left the house, the boat, to follow the Master. He too is ready to give his life, but to win, not to lose. He reacts. He has understood and cannot accept Jesus' proposal. Let us be careful, because if we do not react like Peter, it means that we have not understood what Jesus said. Let us listen to what Peter did.
Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciple, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns."
Peter was amazed at what Jesus had said and was convinced that he had said the wrong thing. So he took Jesus aside. The evangelist says he began to rebuke him. The verb used is very important. Epitiman is the verb used by the evangelist to narrate Jesus' exorcisms. When Jesus has to cast out the devil, he rebukes him and the demon disappears. Using this verb, the evangelist Mark is saying that Peter has begun to exorcise Jesus. Peter is convinced that what Jesus said was suggested by the devil and must be cast out. Why does Peter think that Jesus has said a foolish thing? Because if we are going to look in the Bible, Peter is right. In the Bible, it is always said that the Lord protects the righteous. The one who does good is blessed. The Lord satisfies him with his blessings. Take for example Psalm 37, where the psalmist says, "The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them. But my Lord laughs at them because he sees that their day is coming." God put things in their place. God is on the side of the righteous. And the psalmist continues, "Neither in my youth nor now in old age have I seen the righteous one abandoned." For the Lord does not abandon the faithful. In the end, the unjust will be destroyed forever. The race of the wicked is lost. What the psalmist says is found throughout the Old Testament. The promises made about the Messiah are those of victory. He will be a conqueror and subdue all his enemies. This is the catechesis that Peter has learned. And now Jesus is saying the opposite. Taking the Old Testament literally, Peter is right. Peter does not understand that God's victories are not those of men. God has only one victory, which is that of love, not of weapons, of those who can overcome their enemies. This is Peter's misunderstanding. What is Jesus' response? He began to rebuke Peter. That is, he began to perform an exorcism on Peter. It is you, Peter, who has Satan within you, because you reason according to the judgment of men and not according to God. Get behind me, not away from me, as they used to say. No, get behind me. Don't stay in front of me to show me the way. I will show you the way, for I am the way of God. If you want to be a man after God, follow me. He called him Satan because, having assimilated human thoughts, the world is in the hands of the evil one. Peter has suggested to the Master, without realizing it, options opposite to those of the Lord. And now Jesus addresses a clarification to the multitudes. It is surprising that in Caesarea Philippi suddenly appears a whole crowd waiting. What crowd is this? There was no crowd at Caesarea Philippi. Only the disciples were there. Jesus speaks to us. We are this multitude that he now addresses. Let us listen. Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it." We are very concerned with numbers. We count, we make statistics, we make forecasts, we see how many we are, if we increase or decrease. Jesus is not concerned with numbers, but that we have a clear idea of what it means to follow him. He says to the crowd, that is us, "Whoever wants to be my disciple," the proposal of love does not impose itself. It makes you a proposal and leaves you free. Your life depends on it because you have to follow somebody. If you follow the wrong shepherds, false shepherds, you will become false. Your life will be bad. Jesus makes his proposal to you. If anyone wants to come after me, let us be careful because there are many admirers of Jesus, but to admire Jesus does not mean yet to be his disciple. It is necessary to adhere to him. It is necessary to follow him. Faith in Jesus is also not an adherence to a package of truths. No, these demands that he now makes very clear cannot be mitigated. They can be accepted or rejected. Jesus does not give discounts, delays, second thoughts. Make up your mind. You have 3 imperatives to clarify what it means to follow him. First condition, deny yourself. The verb
Il verbo apparneomai
is the verb that is used for Peter when he denies Jesus, when he tells, I have nothing to do with that man. It is blasphemy, says Mark. The other evangelists have avoided this verb. That is, he has begun to curse God against Jesus, to say that he had nothing to do with that man. Jesus uses this verb to say to Peter, now you are the one who has nothing to do with yourself. Deny yourself. You don't exist anymore. The instinct we have is to do everything for ourselves. We instinctively turn to ourselves, and everything we do is for our own benefit. Jesus says, then if you follow me, forget about yourself. In every choice that you make, every action that you take, it must be for the joy and life of others. Think no more of yourself, but of the needs of your brother for life, for the joy of your brother. Your joy will be the joy of God. That is, you will be a happy person. The first condition is this. The second condition, take up your cross. It does not refer to the necessity of enduring with patience the small or great tribulations of life. An expression was used which said that everyone has his own cross to bear. No. Here, the cross is not to be borne. The cross that Jesus proposes must be chosen, embraced. What does it mean? Not to choose suffering, but love. The one who takes up the cross with his life, what does he do? Let us think of Jesus. Coming out of Pilate's praetorium after the condemnation, it is the eve of the Passover. The city of Jerusalem at that moment is already full of people, and in front of the gate of Pilate's praetorium is the agora, therefore, where all the people are shopping for the night of the Passover, the Paschal supper. When Jesus comes out, he is wearing around his neck the reason for which he was condemned to crucifixion. He wanted to become king. He has to pass among the people who consider him a failure, a loser, accursed of God, insult him for the choice of love he has chosen. He has chosen love, not competition. He has chosen to give his life for others, not to take the lives of others. He passes among these people, and by the standards of this world, he receives insults. He is considered a nobody. The disciples of Christ must keep in mind that if we make the choice of life proposed by Jesus of Nazareth, he is considered a nobody. He will not be a successful person in the eyes of the world. In the eyes of the world, he will be a failure because the great ones of the world are those who assert themselves, who in competition win, who do not think of others. The day when one who obeys the God money begins to think about the good of others, he immediately becomes a loser. To embrace the cross means keeping in mind that you will not be praised in this world. You will be considered a loser. The third condition, to follow him. It does not mean to imitate him. No. It means to be always attentive to where he goes, how he walks, the decision he makes. To follow him means practically to pray. Praying means always having your cell phones available to talk to him, meaning that whatever decisions I have to make, I must first ask him what he thinks about it. Don't tell me he doesn't answer you, because we know that. If we know him, we will learn how he thinks. The wife does not need to listen to what her husband suggests to her. She knows how her husband thinks and makes choices to please him. That is why we need to pray, so that at all times the choices are made according to him. The promise that Jesus makes is that on the third day there will be the resurrection. When the third day is mentioned in the Bible, and this expression is often repeated, it does not mean the day after tomorrow. It means how things will end. It is not that Jesus promised that he would return after 3 days. No. The third day is the conclusion in God's story of a lifetime. And the life that triumphs in the end is that of the losers by love, like Christ. I wish you all a good Sunday and a good week.